Hi everyone, it's James here from the Studio Rats. You find me out of the studio, out in the real world if you will, and I'm joining the man, the mountain, the legend, Mr. Mike Exeter, and we are here at Gospel Oak Studios. Where are we?
We're in Lapworth in Warwickshire. Beautiful, just outside Birmingham and on the way down to Warwick.
So we're outside London,
Yeah.
so it's all foreign to me.
Basically Hobbiton.
So we've been up here playing with some toys and doing a mix of the new Studio Rats song called It's You, featuring the vocal stylings of Mr. Jack Rubinacci, and playing with this session, and you've been making it lovely, of course.
Thank you.
But I've been watching what you've been doing, because hey, that's the best way to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some interesting session management, session setup stuff going on. I wonder if you wouldn't mind sharing some of your magical secrets on the session. And
everything that I've pogged off other people.
What is it they say? There's no such thing as plagiarism.
Yeah.
Or to steal from one is plagiarism. To steal from many is research.
Exactly.
If you're hearing comedy horse sound effects, it's not Baz, the studio owner, downstairs with his coconuts. We're actually on a farm, so Henry the horse will neigh from time to time. So bear with us.
Yeah.
But over to you, sir. Show us around your session and what's going on.
Okay, so my session initially looks rather daunting and complex because, let me just hide a couple of things, because it looks like there's lots of channels in it, and there are. But as you can see, it's all color-coded.
How many did we send you in the first place?
I think it was probably around 30 tracks, something like that. It's not a huge session. This section here is a massive amount of backing vocals. And
Paul does like his BVs.
Indeed, these tracks are the backing vocal tracks. So the session itself, all the colour coding is really important. I went straight to those because I know they're orange. I know my lead vocals are red. I set my session up to emulate an analog console workflow. I mix completely in the box. So top to bottom is left to right in Pro Tools. So on my left-hand side of the session, I have my main mix print track. So I have a mix bus where I have my stereo bus compressor and my referencing plugin, which is the adapter metric AB plugin, which allows me to do comparisons between 16 reference tracks and the mix I'm on. And it's on the same bus, listening through the same converters, all of that. Next to that is my actual print track. And the reason I like to print within the session rather than bounce the disc is many things. I can recall a session and just print a chorus if I'm only making changes to that, cut that in and snip it as if I was printing to ½ inch. I can keep all my versions of the mixes in playlists whilst renaming my tracks the same, so that I can basically backtrack through versions. And again, I could cut together between versions of mixes if someone said, I really like the verses on this but didn't like the choruses. We can go back and just nick the verses easily. There's a blank limited print track, so if I'm going to do a listening copy for someone, I'll put it through a limiter, just a Fab Filter Pro or two. Then I have my, I think it's something like 16 VCAs. These correspond to, there's a utility drum one, which literally is there to act with solo safes. It's a little bit convoluted. And I've got a get out of jail free VCA, which if I pull the fader up and down here, you can see is affecting my entire VCA thing. That's so that I can rebalance or not push so hard into the stereo compressor, and I've got control over the entire mix. I can do the odd sting of pushing into the compressor harder on a chorus or let it relax a little bit for verses, things like that. And then within this first section, all the blue tracks are audio tracks. They're my drum tracks. They're sorted out into sections of kicks, snares, toms, and all the metal work and rooms. Within those, I have these are individually bussed to a subgroup, which is my kick sub. Then I have a snare sub, a tom sub, and a rest of kit sub. So each sub then goes all the way down the session and feeds into my main stem buses, which are a little bit way down here. These purple ones that I've just lost again. And each of these has got a Brainworks plugin on, which has got the tolerance matching technology thing. So each pair of plugins, each stem bus is slightly analogous to analog.
Yeah,
there's a little bit.
It's the same but different.
Yes, exactly. It's the subtleties and the tolerances in components that it's modelling. From there is where I double bus. I feed each of those now 14 subgroups back to my stereo bus, but they also double bus over to this section on the right, which are inactive at the moment, that are my stem prints. So I can open those up, put them all into record, and print my mix as stems. And that's the reason that my drum stuff is slightly more complicated, because I have reverbs for each section of the kit. So you can see just here, I've got the tom sum. That feeds to the next track, which is the tom reverb. The tom reverb, the snare reverb, and the main kick reverb are usually set to the same. And on certain mixes, I'll even group them so that when I adjust the controls on one, I'm effectively getting the same.
Did you say kit reverb or kick reverb?
Kick reverb.
Good, I'm glad you said that, because when people say, oh, I don't put the kick, I don't give the kick reverb, I'm like, why would you do that? The kick is exciting the room as much as the snare or toms would be.
Totally. And in fact, if I just open that up, so you can see I'm actually using quite a lot on the send, and that's going over to an ambience medium bright, and it's just something to give the kick a little bit of something, just a kind of feeling. And my kick drum will be made up of various kick tracks. I might put sometimes a sample in there to provide some ambience underneath it, or to provide a sub kick. If someone's recorded your sub kick sounded great. If someone puts a sub kick in that sounds like someone's just stuck a speaker in front of a badly tuned drum, it's out of the mix. There's no point. It's just going to kill it. So yes, I use reverbs, and on the snare I use two different reverbs. I use a short splatty one, which excites the top end, and I'll use either the bottom of the snare or, again, a little ambient sample, and feed those into the splatty one.
Whoa. You just said sample.
Sample, yeah.
You said sample.
So the sample, because one of the greatest mixers on the planet, as far as I'm concerned, is Andy Wallace.
Yep.
And I was lucky enough to see him work, and he basically, as a model for people who want to learn how to mix, this is what he does. He uses an SSL console, he uses 3 different reverbs, he uses a delay, and that's it. And it's all automation. He gets his mixes using the onboard EQ, and it doesn't matter whether it's an E, a G, or a J, or a K. He just gets on with it. He uses the short, medium, and long reverb, and he just uses it sounds like a gated snare from a Linn drum. And he just fires that alongside the snare. That goes into the splatty reverb, and then they all get combined, and that gets fed into a Largewood room style reverb, and that's what gives you that punch, the confidence. So reverbs, samples, they're all there to help us make it feel like we're in a big room, because we're trying to get our mix through little speakers. We're not in a big room.
Well, and it wasn't recorded in a big room.
No.
We know that because my drum room isn't.
Exactly. You actually come in via a fireman's pole to get on your drum throne.
Yes, that has been suggested. It's actually 3 by 2 meters.
Yeah.
That's how small my drum
And what's
is.
amazing is you get a very, very lovely punchy drum sound, but there's no ambience. The spill isn't, everybody says spill is your friend. In this case, it's not your enemy, but it's not helping much. So to be able to get the definition and punch, we need to apply some tricks. And ultimately, samples aren't a bad thing, especially when you do them properly. I use Massey's DRT to get the triggers properly. I go through a method that my friend Andy Sneap told me, which is to double check the printed track of the sample triggers once you've done them, and make sure they're all in phase, and make sure the dynamics are still there. Every hit's meant to be different. So there's no machine gun stuff going on with this. And it's just old school technology. It's in the box, but I've got Bricasti emulations, which are effectively Lexicon 480 updates. I'm using SSL plugins a lot, Brainworks. It's just a case of, if you want, in my case, a rock sound, or in your case, it's actually quite a contemporary pop song. Still sounds great, SSL lexicon kind of style. And it doesn't get much more complicated than that after the drums. It's literally every single VCA just controls a set of faders. So I'm on an SSL AWS, which has got a Mackie Huey layer. So you can see if I pull my VCA down, it's actually affecting my kit sum, which is the cymbals. If I go to the bass, I'm affecting all three of the bass. If I go to guitar A, I'm affecting those. Guitar B, it's doing that. So I base my general balances around my VCAs at the front of the track, or the front of the session. It makes me able to work on a macro level. I can step back and I can go, what's actually wrong with a song? Well, those three instruments are too loud. Turn them down. Get the balance, Depeche Mode song, get the balance right. Make sure that you're working with levels to start with. And this session setup is all about helping me navigate quickly. So horrible purple VCAs, but I know where they are. Blue drums, brown bass, 3 different shades of green for guitars with their requisite effects buses. I then have acoustic guitars, which are yellow because an acoustic guitar is basically yellowish. And then I have a guitar solo or licks or whatever. And I have, most importantly, vocals, red. They're the important part of the track in a non-instrumental. They're all together. All my backing vocals are grouped together. And again, it's great just being able to pull an entire set of instruments or tracks down. All my backing vocal effects, the same as my lead vocal effects. Again, for a similar thing, I may be using the same effects on the vocals, but I want to be able to print the stems separately. And I also want ultimate control over it, which we'll get to. Then I've got I call them keyboard A and keyboard B. They can turn into string parts, they can turn into programs, anything. It's kind of utility tracks. And then my percussion tracks. And then we're up to my actual submixer. So it's complicated to look at. If someone went into that session, they go, oh my God, that's ridiculous. But when you actually switch to the other screen and see how much of it actually isn't audio, it's routing, placeholders, all that kind of stuff. Most of the plugins don't reside in the session, except for my vocal effects and my master bus. They're never set to anything particular. I tweak as I go. I don't use presets. Again, an Andy Wallace thing, my bus compressor is set 4:1, fastest attack, auto release, and that's it. And I can emulate that on the SSL console and get the similar stuff. I push into it, I'm not taking any more than a couple of dB out at any point. And I kind of use that as my marker. I know I can hear if I'm pushing it too hard. I can take a quick look at the bus compressor. Also on the SSL, I've got this set up so that I send a tone out, so I can actually rely on the VUs. I know that 0 VU is my -14, which is what headroom I leave. So everything is about knowing that I can sit down and not actually have to look at a screen. I can get around the mix. I don't really even name the tracks particularly. I don't care if it's kick in, kick out, or kick sub, because I'll hear it. So my session is generally kick 1, 2, and 3, snare 1, 2, and 3, guitar A 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, guitar B, and just like that. And it makes me learn the track. It's really important to invest in learning. So when I was setting up earlier with this session, I'd been sent a bunch of WAVs from Paul, and it just came into the session all different colours. And I spent probably half an hour putting all the tracks into their receptacle tracks in my template. I just drag them or copy and paste them up into the track. And the way the session's set up is once the audio goes into the track, it takes on that track's colour. If I need to keep a bunch of plugins on, I'll move that track up, and then I'll just do a 3-step process, which is to change the colour of the tracks I've moved up, change the output of the tracks, and put them into the correct VCA group. And that's just right-clicking on things and going through this process. It clears the brain, but it also gets you to know what's going on. So familiarity happens, and then from then it's like, get down and start finding out what stuff needs. I do solo. I solo quite a lot, but I then will pull stuff back. And this is the beauty of having VCAs. Even if automation is happening from something that's being sent to me, I can still rebalance the track. I can find out what's going on. So I'm just looking for what's going to make the mix start to happen for me. And generally I want to get automating as soon as possible, because that's when you can just solve problems that a lot of people would be looking to add compression or EQ. And you might just go, the reason those two aren't fitting together is because for this particular guitar lick, you need to pan them against each other and then bring them back. So I'll be automating pretty much from the moment I start. You know, I'm looking at sounds, and then I'm like, first thing that bugs me, I'll just throw it into right or latch and I'll start automating.
Mike, thanks so much. Your session layout and setup stuff is absolutely incredible. A lot for us all to learn there.
Thank you.
Very good stuff, and something certainly I should be applying to my next mix, I think.
Good luck.
Hope you enjoyed that, everyone. My name's James Ivey from the Studio Rats. We will see you again soon.